Hey, Don't Die Rusty fans. I'm here with Ricky Bruley. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. I literally just got home from a weekend art show as usual. Got the little one ready for bed, and here we are chatting. We're gonna do a little bit of intro on this next upcoming episode.
It was fun, but it was very interesting conversation. I know you listened to it because you edited everything, and
hmm
but it was one of those that I didn't know what to say sometimes. It was really great to hear.
It was a great episode. I had some pretty good laughs. I had a moment where I got a solid lump in my throat. Just because he shows some of the vulnerabilities that he has, and uh, he's been through some stuff without a doubt.
Definitely, and when you say that, it's a raw conversation. I want to warn people now. I mean, if you don't like swearing, this is one that you may not like, but it's a real conversation. It's about mental health in our armed forces. Then he finds out his dad isn't his dad, and he found his real dad, and it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, just the way that it kind of went down too. I didn't expect it to happen that way, and then he just ended up having a very profound moment. Something was said, it's just stuck in his head, and he couldn't let it go, and he had to mention it, and then it all came out. You're 33 years old when you just get this bomb dropped on you. Like, I can't imagine the whirlwind of emotions that would be going through my head to get that type of news at 33. And just, yeah, I mean, you got to stay, you got to listen. Yeah, and to your point, there's some colorful language. He's a colorful man. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, he's got a lot of energy, and and again, like, I don't, it's such an amazing conversation. It's such an amazing story that I wouldn't want anybody to miss out on it, because of that. And yeah, you just have to listen to it for yourself. Such a cool dude.
Definitely, because I learned a lot about myself and as well as Dan, and because of he, he puts everything out there. He doesn't hold anything back. I wouldn't let the colorful language make any adjustments to me not listening to or listening because it is if you you want to hear some cool stories and hear about amazing life, then you should listen to it for sure.
Yeah, and we're not ones to judge. I mean, we like to throw out a mother once in a while too.
You've never heard me say that. No, I'm just kidding. The seven peaks, if people would have heard some things sometimes, I'm not.
Sometimes a hat goes flying shortly after.
You're right there. So I can't say that I'm a saint, but
Yeah, there is a moment in there too that I bust out laughing. You know what I mean? Like, it just cracked me up. And again, it's all about the rawness of the conversation, and I love that. I don't like to censor any of that kind of stuff. I want
no,
people to hear them for who they are, and it's how it is.
the rawness makes it such a fun conversation because it's so real. It's like right
Mhm.
there, hitting you in the face. You know what I mean? This is sometimes like when you're in the storm and you just have to face it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where some of those went. Like we're facing the
Mhm.
storm and we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy this next episode as much as I did having the conversation. And Ricky happened to be doing daddy daughter stuff. So
Mhm.
this is one conversation that Ricky wasn't in, but it was a great conversation.
Enjoy episode 27.
Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hansen, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all in this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, Don't Die Rusty. Hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. This is Rick with the Don't Die Rusty podcast. And Ricky, my co host, is out watching his child, and he might jump in here every once in a while. But you know what? We appreciate people with kids, and Ricky's taking care of Emma, and it's just a good life for him. So Dan Stakes was his sister actually told me he had a cool story. She said I'm pretty boring, but my brother he'll have a good story. Just could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, right now I'm in San Antonio, Texas. I currently do real estate. I'm a retired combat veteran, and you know, I've been doing real estate for about 4.5 years. But when I first got out here, how I transitioned into this was I was medically retired in 2015, and so I had some injuries from my past deployments that kind of caught up to me. We could dive into that. But I got out the military. The army was like, "Hey, pretty much you're done." So I had to go through the med board process. I got out and I moved here to San Antonio. So at that time, my father, my mother, my sister, and her husband lived out here. And so I came out with my family. And when I got out here, I went through about a year and a half of like mental health and physical therapy, just trying to get myself back in the game. Because it was rough transitioning out, and I didn't expect to do that. To be honest, man, I was going to do 20 years. I didn't have anything else that I was going to do, right? Um, but I got out, and it was a big struggle for me because I suffered with severe back pain. I had to have back surgery. I was blown up in a truck in Iraq, and my brother, the driver, had it blew up underneath him, Nick Brown, and then my brother next to me, Travis Webb, he got his legs blown up from the explosion. My other brother, Fermin Itabade, he got his whole foot shattered, and so it was just a big explosion, and I fucked up my back from it. And it just kept agging on over the years, and I finally had to have back surgery. So then that led to a bunch of PTSD. And once that shit cracks in your egg, man, it's like an egg, like cracking in your skull, right? Like that yolk just starts pouring down. And, it was everything that I was suppressing from that deployment, everything that happened. You do things to suppress it by working out. Maybe you might drink a little. You just kind of stay busy and active. And when my back kind of went out on me, I had these 3 herniated discs, and like I couldn't do shit. Like I could barely get up from. It would take me about 5 minutes to get the fuck up from a chair, and I had to sit back down. And so, man, I'm just sitting there, like can't work out. All I'm doing pretty much is drinking whiskey and popping Percocets. Um, and then so I finally had my back surgery, and then it was just all in there now. Now I'm all in my head, right? And it's like that's just mental health, man. It's just like a disease,
Mm-hmm.
when you start feeding into it, and it just takes a hold of you. So that's the reason why I had to go through about a year and a half of physical and mental therapy. But I met a Marine named Jose Sanchez that he got his leg blown off in Afghanistan, and his other leg was able to be salvaged. But I met him in the gym one time, and he's just this swole motherfucker. Like if he's wearing jeans, you can't even tell that he's injured, right? You can't, and he's just in there, just pumping weights, man, just getting with his one little fucking, his one leg. You know what I mean? And so I had a chance to introduce myself to him after probably the second time I saw him at the gym, and he had just started something in the park, helping another veteran out that was severely overweight, was dealing with depression, was looking at getting a divorce. He had just lost his job, and he was helping him to work out and get back in shape. And so him and his wife, and there was a few other people, they started something called Rise Above Hardship. And he invited me out to the park. They literally just started 2 weeks before I met him. And so I went out there, and man, that was the thing that I was looking for. And so that was my new purpose going into afterlife into the civilian world, you know. Because one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to give back to the veteran community. Like that was the biggest thing for me was, hey God, like I don't know what the fuck you got in store for me moving next, but I want to be able to help veterans. I want to be able to give back to my people who are struggling like me to overcome these fears and these demons that we have stuck inside of our heads. And it led me to that. And the reason why it was so important for me was because not only did we lose a lot of people over there in Iraq, but when I got blown up in that truck, my buddy had lost both of his legs I told you about. And
Mm-hmm.
man, he was on and off heroin. Um, he was having multiple surgeries, and man, he was gone. And I figured if I could do something to build relationships and connections in this city, because he had talked about moving to San Antonio too, I could build enough for him to have everything he needs to move over here. And so I traveled down that journey, and it that's what got me to where I'm at right now. It wasn't going to the VA and talking to a mental health provider that's only been doing it for 3 fucking years that never fucking served, right? It was being around other like veterans that had struggled, had been through it, whether it's PTSD, whether you're missing limbs, you're a burn victim, whatever that is. And that's what got me there, because when you see when, when you see another veteran that's missing a limb, or half his face is fucking burnt off, and they're in there and they're getting shit going, whether they're comedians or they're out there pumping iron or whatever the fuck it is, like you realize you ain't got no motherfucking excuse. And so that shit took me, it helped adjust my mindset, and it just sparked something in me, and that's what I needed. And so through that, that's where I met my mentor, which is my broker in real estate, Levi Rogers. And that guy, I can't say enough about that guy. He's been such a positive impact into my life. Literally, if I wouldn't have met him, I really don't know where I would be at right now, to be honest with you. He literally would take out time for me out of his busy schedule, to talk to me about business, to talk to me about the veteran community, the problems, things that we can do. And he never tried to recruit me to be a realtor, not one time. And it was just one day I was in there, and I had one of my old sergeant majors when I had first got into the Army is a realtor on the team. And I was doing media work for the nonprofit. And so I had learned how to, record videos and edit them and things. I've never done that before. It was just something I had picked up. To be honest, I had bought a camera just for therapeutic reasons, for me to take pictures and photography and shit like that. It was
Mm-hmm.
suggested, and I ended up liking that shit. So I started doing media work for Levi at his company, like just free stuff, going over there and just doing videos for him and his real estate company and all that shit. So I'm doing a drone job on a piece of land that my old sergeant major had owned, and he's a realtor there. And we're talking. He's like, "Hey man, like, damn, why the fuck you don't get into real estate? Man, you making any money doing this shit?" And I wasn't making shit. I was 100% disabled veteran, and like I was cool with what I was doing, man, because I was giving back to the community. I was involved, and like that shit was helping me, and it gave me something. It gave me a purpose. But no, I wasn't making no fucking money. I was trying to build some type of side business, because I did have aspirations to grow some type of generational wealth, or something for my kids, leave something for them on my life. And so, man, I was like, nah, man, I'm not trying to work for nobody. I didn't want to have to work for nobody and, be in no corporate thing. And so he explained to me the way real estate worked, and, how your 1099 contract, all this shit. And I was like, all right, shit. I thought about it. And then I went to Levi one day, and I went to his office unannounced. And you can tell he had somebody very, very important waiting on him. And he saw this look in mine, and he was like, Dan, you all right, man? And I was like, yeah, I was just hoping that, if you have a moment, whenever you have a moment, I'd like to speak to you about something. And so he made them wait, and he brought me in his office, and I told him, I said, hey, I'm thinking about getting my real estate license. If I did, would you give me an opportunity to come over here and make some money with you? And he was like, fuck yeah, and he just like got all excited about the shit. And then probably like 2 months later, I had my license and I was onboarding onto the team. And then I love, I love this shit. And so I was really good at what I was doing and I set goals for myself. And I came in literally the same week everything shut down. So March of 2020, right when COVID shut down. So I did my onboarding training, on a Zoom call. And, and I made 60 grand that year because I started in May. So in 6 months, I made 60 grand, and I was like, "Holy shit, dude! Like, that's a lot of fucking money for somebody like me."
Yeah.
And then I just set goals for myself, and then I started to just really get into the craft. And it wasn't until I did my first investment that I realized that this was my passion. This is what I love doing, and I want to help other people learn what I'm doing. So what I did was, when I first moved to San Antonio, when I got out, I lived with my pops for 3 months. Him and his
Hmm.
girlfriend at the time, and his 2 kids. Now they're married. And man, like when you're living with family, like after like a month or so, man, like it's time to get the fuck up out of there, right? They start
Yeah.
complaining about shit. Like my pops are like when we microwave food and shit, like we put a paper towel over the fucking food
Yeah.
so it doesn't blow up in the fucking microwave.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's something that we've always done. And so like it'd be little shit like that, like, hey man, like you guys, you need to clean the microwave type shit. You know what I mean? Like he's just that. I'm like,
Yep.
whoa, man, like like you need to check your girlfriend or something like that, man. We don't put things in a microwave without a covering or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just little shit like that. People start getting
Hmm.
irritated because you're in each other's space and all this shit.
Yep.
So anyway, I found a place for us to rent because I wasn't getting all my disability yet. And literally probably like a few days before I was going to move into our new rental, I just started getting my 100% disabled check. And when I got there, the home was fucking filthy, man. Like the microwave was shitty. Like there was splatters all over the walls. It smelled like dog piss. So I called down to the property management company and I cussed them the fuck out. And the guy came down there and he happened to be a retired Air Force master sergeant. And he's like, "Hey, Dan, I get you." He's kind of cutting me off with me complaining and shit like that. He's like, "I got it. Like this shit's fucked up. I'm gonna rent this thing out. Don't worry about it. I can get this fixed and help this rent and rent this out to you, or like you could buy a house." And he's like, "Why aren't you buying a house anyway?" And then it kind of explained my situation. And long story short, a week later, we bought our first home. His wife helped us buy our first home in Alamo Ranch
Hmm.
in San Antonio. And it was a brand new home. We paid 268 for it. 4 bed, 3.5 baths with an office downstairs and a media room upstairs, and 2,907 square feet, covered patio. Like it was fucking super badass. Like we had never had anything like that, ever. And and so we enjoyed it, man. But I didn't understand what it meant to own real estate. I didn't understand. I didn't know what equity meant. I didn't know any of that shit. So fast forward back to now I'm in real estate, right? And so now I've been in real estate for about a year and a half, and I'm loving what I do. And I'm like, you know what? Now I'm getting the itch. Now I want to invest. I want to get some. I want to get some other properties and things like that. And so, um, I learned about doing cash out refinances. And so I did a cash out refinance on that house, and I pulled out $67,000 because now it had appraised for about 150 grand more than what I bought it for. And I'm like, holy shit, okay, this is why people invest in real estate and do these things.
Yep.
And so I pulled that money out. I paid off all of our debt, and then I got approved. Once I did that, since I cleared up everything, and I had released my entitlements for my VA because I switched it to a conventional loan. I was approved for $700,000 to buy another house, and I was
Hmm.
like, holy shit! You telling me you're gonna loan me $700,000 to go buy another fucking house? So the next day, I pull up at a $700,000 house, and I call my loan officer, and I'm like, "Hey, I want this house. And she's like, Dan, like you literally just got to prove, like, what the fuck? So, you know, I was going to take that money and invest in a, 3 bed, 2 bath or something like that. But I saw a rare opportunity for me to buy an even better house for my family in a better school district. And so I decided to turn the house that we were living in into my first investment property. And I turned it into an Airbnb. So I took the rest of the money I had left and I furnished the whole property and I listed it as an Airbnb. And we bought this badass house in Callison Ranch. And and then, I was like, holy shit, like I have to teach other people how to do this shit. And then so I went and bought another property. And so, I have a long-term renter in one, and I'm cash flowing about, 450 bucks a month on the long term. And then on the
Yep.
Airbnb, I was cash flowing about, 12 to 15 grand a year on that. And so that's when I knew I fucking loved what I did. And I literally do this shit 7 days a week, man. It's something I want that I love doing. I love to educate. I love to help people, guide people down this direction. Whether you're trying to be an investor, you just want, or if you don't give a shit about any of that, and you just want to buy your home for your family, and you're looking for the best area, the best price, all that shit. And
Good.
so, but yeah, and that's kind of where I am right now. And so the last Levi Rogers Real Estate Group is the number one team in Texas, and I've been the number one agent on the team 2022 and 2023.
Well, that's awesome. It's it you hit me with a few bunch of stuff when you were talking there. So, when you were in the military, you were in the army.
Yep, I was in the army.
All right, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure I tell you that because I appreciate all any of our servicemen do because I get the freedoms to do what I want to do too. So, and I
Hell
love
yeah.
the stars and stripes. I talked to Dan Horgan a while ago. I don't know if you know Dan, but
He does media and stuff, right?
he was in the Air Force.
Damn. Oh no, I'm thinking about somebody else.
Yeah, but and I just I love the red, white, and blue. So it's just amazing. And but here's the deal: when you were talking about the mental stuff, and it's interesting because we're going to do an episode with the bullfighter I was telling you about earlier when we had the conversation that we're going to have next week. But he had some head injuries and some other stuff, concussions, and he was talking about a hyperbaric chambers and how that helped him get growth and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I and then I know like other people that have been in Iraq that have had bad situations, like and uh, it's sad in some ways. But I just you guys going through this is the toughest thing that a person can do, and I have to say I appreciate it. Where I was going with this is, do you do any counseling then, or do you do anything after since that time, or to just keep flowing? You know what I mean, or whatever.
Yeah. Not really. I don't really see a counselor anymore. I'm surrounded with veterans, and like, like I said, like my mentor, my mentor Levi Rogers, he has a huge story. He was a commander in the special forces, and he got blown up in Afghanistan. He was a sole survivor, and he has third-degree burns on about 40% of his body. And so I get to see that every day. I get to see that every day. And I have other friends. I have multiple friends, that served in different, Marines, Navy, and things like that. And so those are my motivations. I don't need to seek a counselor anymore for
Mm-hmm.
things like that, because if I need to, I know I can go and talk to them, because they've
Mm-hmm.
been through it and they know that. And I've just developed this mindset. Um, and it took me a little bit to develop this mindset, to be honest with you. My buddy that lost his legs in Afghanistan, in Iraq, when we got blown up in that truck, I mentioned he just, he never recovered from that. Like, he pretty much died over there, and he wasn't able to adapt with this new way of living that he had to go through, with learning how to use prosthetic legs and being in that wheelchair and people looking at him and things like that. Like he just couldn't adapt to it. And when he got, whoever hooked him on heroin, and then that's a whole nother thing on its own. That just starts to fuck with your mind. And so he
Yep.
just wasn't able to adapt. And I used to get really pissed off at him, to be honest with you. After a while, I started to get really pissed off on him. Sometimes I, I look back at that and think how selfish that was. But I wanted to help him so bad. Like I wanted to help him so bad. Um, but I couldn't. It didn't matter what I did. It's a mindset that you have to develop. And so he ended up overdosing on heroin a couple years ago. And, you know, I'm pretty pissed off about that shit. But, you have to understand, man, like, I don't know what's going inside of that guy's head, and, everyone deals with things on their own level. And it doesn't matter what you do. I learned a lot from that. The only thing you can do for people is you can't push them. You just have to let them know you're there every single time, and don't get fucking pissed off. Let them know you're there. Do everything you can to support them, and make an effort. Make an effort to make a phone call. Whether they don't pick up the phone for you, you know, 50 times in a row. Whether they don't respond to your text for 6 months and they go dark. Just be there and support them. Don't get pissed off, and see whatever you can do to help them out, because I just started to go down the hard route, and just because I wanted the best for him, and I knew that if he was to overcome that shit, and I told him he could have been such an influence to so many other people, but at the end of the day, it was really selfish of me because I don't know what he's going through. I haven't been down that road, and so, and then my Nick Brown, the driver that died from that explosion because it blew up right underneath him, he was the first person to go home on R&R in Iraq. And the reason why is because his wife was pregnant before we left, and she was giving birth to his son. So we got to Iraq. We flew to Kuwait in October. Actually, on my birthday, I was on my way to Kuwait, October 31st. And we got in sector. I think we got in Iraq into Mosul in like November, and he went on leave in January. Actually, Travis Webb went on leave with him, and he got back, and I can't really remember, but I want to say it was when I think it was within a week. January 22nd, 2007 is when we got blown up. And so he was home on R&R, and he has one picture holding his son in the delivery room. And so his son will never ever have the opportunity to know his real father in that manner, in the physical form. And so the only way he's going to know him is through spirit, through pictures, and through word and everything like that. And so how dare I be here with all my shit, all my limbs. My mind is, you know, stable enough to maneuver, out here and do things, and not live my best life in honor of them and in honor of their families. And so I stopped just feeling sorry for myself through that shit. I stopped being fucking ass sad, because that shit's always going to come back to you and bite you in the fucking head every now and then, and you're going to get a little sadness or whatever, Veterans Day, alive dates and things like that, but you're not all the time. And so I use that as motivation to live my best life and to thrive in everything that I do in honor of those guys that I mentioned, their families, and everyone else that we lost, and all their families, and all the other motherfuckers that I didn't fucking know that died over there. And, whether you went over there because you were patriotic and you thought you were doing a service to your country, or you went over there because you wanted to build a better life for your family, and you knew that was something that you had to do in order to get the benefits you needed, it doesn't matter what that reason was. We were all there together for a reason. And, and some of them didn't get to come home to, for that reason. They didn't get to come home to fulfill that reason why they went over there. And so if you're a veteran and there's nothing wrong with you, you're just, struggling with PTSD, like you have to know that. You have to understand that there's a bigger purpose and that you need to develop that mindset so that you can go out and we can be stronger as a community. And my mentor helped me to realize that too. He helped me to realize that. And it's just something you got to do. It's something you got to do.
Yeah, and it's when you talked about if people go dark or here's what I do sometimes, and I wish, I hope that I've talked about this in a few other episodes, but I try to, some days I pick out three or four people, just go through, scroll through my contacts list, and I go, "You're amazing. I'm thinking about you today. Have a great day." I'm not. You don't have to text me back, and I don't say that, but you don't have to text me back or anything like that. But if people know that you're thinking about them, that could be the difference in that day. And if
Absolutely.
they're
Yeah,
and if
I
they're
agree.
thinking about something dumb, I mean, I'm not saying these people are, but I'm just saying, you know what? If that smile on your face and somebody's thinking about you, it's the best thing in the world. And what does it do? It takes five. Well, with me, my thumbs are slow, so it takes me maybe 10 minutes to get four of those out there. But
uh,
if that's a lifetime, that's all that matters.
I
And
like it.
so
That's interesting. Yeah.
you know what I mean. And I had a friend. I have a friend that was in Ramadi, and he wrote the. I don't know if you've ever heard of the glass factory, Braxton McCoy. He got
hmm
blown up by a suicide bomber. It's quite a good, interesting story. But
his name is what? Baxter McCoy?
Braxton McCoy,
Braxton McCoy. Okay.
yep, and it's a really great book because he tells about the hardships too of the brotherhood and of healing. And I haven't talked to him, and it's one of those, I haven't talked to him for a while, but it's the effects that people have on your lives, and to understand the hardships. I went It is the hardships, but it's the things that people have gone through. We need to understand this stuff, and like I said, me as a civilian, I'm saying we need to understand some of this stuff to appreciate and but also help. And that's what I'm trying to. That's what I try to do. That's kind of where I wanted to start the Don't Die Rusty podcast, is because I think we need to change the world and have people have hope.
Yeah.
But so in and we might come back to this because I want to talk about some good stuff now.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. For
understand what
sure.
I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because your
I get a little
story,
bit worked up sometimes, man, because it's so real, and like it's so real, and those types of things make you the person that you are. And it's just it's not a sad, it's not necessarily a sad emotional response. It's a fucking damn it, I'm blessed emotional response. Like,
yeah,
holy shit, man, like there's so much more to go, there's so much more to do. And like when you think about honoring somebody, like that's like honoring someone, that's the highest level of respect that you can give an individual, and so like yeah, I get a little bit choked up sometimes, man. So just,
no, but I understand that. I mean, there's, I've had I've had people that have been really close to me that have died. That I try to honor them every day by being the best person I can be, and it's not, and so that's that's what I try to do in my own way. I don't, I mean, I try to uphold honor. Like said, I know a lot of people in the military now, and sometimes I feel guilty, or I don't know how to feel because I went to college to play football. That was my goal
Mhm.
in life, and you have these goals, and then I talk to you and other people, and I go, you know what? Could have I been different or better or whatever else, you know what I mean? But I think you make these choices in life, and they make you who you are. And if you're appreciative and you can believe in the good things in life, then I think I'm going there. I'm more at peace with myself now, than feeling like that because I. But anyway, but anyway, we'll get to the better stuff here. And the fun. It might not be fun to you, but
Uh,
so your sister told me, well, my brother has a different story. He went through some hardships when you were young,
uh,
and then these are the things, because this is amazing to me. Your story of of finding your purpose and then finding your dad.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. My sister likes to run
I
her mouth.
mean,
Apparently,
you
not just.
did because I mean, that is the most amazing thing to me because it's it. I mean, and you told me about it on the phone call too that we had, but I think you know the previous stuff that the things we have talked about with the military that gives me inspiration to want to go help, but this gives me inspiration that there's something in this world that is just amazing too.
Yeah,
And so you were, and it's funny because your lives paralleled each other. I mean, we'll get there.
yeah,
Just but I might as well just shut up because sometimes I talk too much and say stupid things. So I'm just going to say, hey, can you tell us a story about how you grew up and met your dad then? And
yeah. Absolutely, man. First, I'm gonna say my sister's super badass because if I don't say that, like, she's gonna be super pissed at me. No,
she's not.
I really do mean it though, man. She's cool. She was, obviously I have more siblings now that I knew about when I was growing up, but that was my little sister. And, even though she'll tell you she still has flashbacks about how fucking mean I was to her. And, I try to tell her now, we had a conversation, we were like grown ups. This is like probably like 4 years ago or something. She was just super sad and like having PTSD and flashbacks how mean I was to her. And I was like, Sam, like, I'm a grown adult, man. I was a fucking kid. I didn't have any brothers. Like, what do you expect, man? Of course, I'm a fucking, be mean to you and rough you up. I didn't have any other brothers to let that aggression out on. But anyway, man, I want to make sure I said that first. But yeah, like, so,
Hold on 1 second here, because if you're going to say that, I had a super badass little sister myself. So I'll say
uh,
that too because here's the deal. It's funny because I would I didn't have any. We would. I lived in the country, okay,
uh,
and we'd make rules like you could throw the football on top of the roof and catch it like you were passing it to yourself, that kind of stuff. And
right,
then
right. Oh yeah, I love that game.
I'd have
That's a
friends come
real
over.
thing, right? I just seen a thing. That's like a whole thing. I didn't know.
Well, I
I
didn't
thought it
know
was just a
that,
thing we did when we were kids. Yeah.
but I'd have friends come over, like have like two friends stay overnight, when you're younger, and we'd go out and play this game, and I'd pick my sister,
Uh,
because
because
she
you
was
had taught her.
badass.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say, and other people might disagree with me, but she was in the state championship basketball game her senior year,
uh,
and she took a charge and then went and shot free throws, and they won the state championship that year. And yes, there was other people, but I say taking that charge was the there's a turning point in the game, and I credit myself with toughening her up to take that charge. Okay, so all
oh,
of
you
us
got to
mean
take the credit for that. Yeah, yeah. If
all of
she
us
didn't
mean
have you, she wouldn't be
brothers.
able to do that. Right.
Yeah, so we toughened up our sisters. That's what I'm saying.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take credit for that. We
There
got
you
to take
go.
credit for it, man. Like, if it wasn't for us, who knows what kind of little soft princesses they would be.
That's
And
right. But no, no. Sam seems really, really cool. So I just wanted to say that. But now I'll let you go on with your story here.
yeah. So just so I started from when I was 30, which I'll be 39 this year in October. And so no, I wasn't 30. I was 33. I'm sorry, 33. So my mom, I had this DNA kit test that my wife had bought for me for Christmas, you know, and I didn't take it. Sometimes I can get into conspiracy theories and shit like that. Like,
Yeah.
there's a whole nother topic, but like, I'm just one of the people, I don't. it's hard for me to trust things. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, I don't want this motherfucker having a database of my data, you know? And so I didn't take it. And it's just like,
Yeah.
just kind of sitting in the kitchen, just, it's been sitting there for like 6 months. And my mom, you know, she's getting ready to move to Arizona with her husband, you know, because she was living out here. She moved out there with her husband. And, you know, we're drinking in the kitchen and stuff. And she just, hey, you know, she kind of points to, she's like, hey, what's that? And I was like, oh, this, you know, this DNA kit test that, you know, Janae got me or whatever. And she's like, oh, did you do it yet? And I'm like, nah, I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm like, I've been kind of on the fence about it, you know. I just don't want these people, you know, having, you know, my data, you know, they're going to clone me and all this shit. You know, I'm just like, all this shit, right? And
Yeah.
she's like, oh, you should do it. I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah, you should do it. It'd be interesting to see what happens and all this. It was just a weird conversation, you know,
Yep.
and like I had kind of always, thanks, son. I had kind of always knew, or just had this feeling that you know my father wasn't my father. You know, we didn't look alike or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't really share a lot of commonalities. Um, you know, a part of who I am is because of him for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But no physical commonalities really. And you know, I just thought that maybe you know DNA took over, and I just looked like my mom. Sometimes things can work like that, you know.
Yep.
But I've always had a feeling, you know, I never really got along with my father growing up. Never. We just didn't vibe. We're just two different people. And so like, you know, we're drinking and shit. And you know, I don't want to ruin the night, but like it just that conversation is kind of stuck in my mind like the whole night. So the next morning, you know, I get up because we have to go. We're going to move all her stuff into storage, and like I'm just backing out of the truck, you know, out of the moving truck and stuff like that, moving stuff, and I'm like, hey, ma, like, I'm like, yesterday you brought up that DNA kit test, and I'm like, you know, that conversation just been kind of stuck with me. I'm like, you got something you need to tell me? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, ma, I'm a grown ass man. I'm like, if you got something you need to tell me, you should kind of talk to me about it. And she was like, are you sure it's not going to affect you? You know, just being an older. I'm like, ma. I'm like, what do you mean affect me? I'm like, fucking. I'm like, spit it out. You know. That's how I talk to my mom. Not being disrespectful, but
Yeah.
we just talk to each other like that.
I hear you.
And she's like, okay. She's like, well, you know, Dan's not your father. And I'm like, I said, okay. I said, well, who is? And she was like, I don't know. She was like, I know, I know he's from England, and his name is Chris. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, you know, and then we just had this big old conversation about how social media didn't exist back then. There was no way for them to track them. She told me they went on a few dates or whatever like that, you know, and then you know, he's from England, so his visa had been expired, and he had to go back to England. And so, you know, they did their thing, and you know, they had fun for a little bit, you know, a week or two, and you know, he left,
Yep.
not knowing that he left, you know, a kid behind. He didn't know this. He didn't know anything,
Yeah.
you know. And so I'm like, holy shit. And then what really fucked me up was that everyone knew about this my entire life. My grandparents, you know, my I, I'm gonna call him my dad because he raised me, but you know, technically my stepdad
Yeah.
or whatever. And everyone knew this shit, and it was a big problem. You know, it was a big problem in their relationship and everything. And you know, I had no idea, but it made a lot of sense on why my dad was the way he was with me. You know, I was pretty much like a little punching bag. You know, I couldn't imagine, you know, being you know, early 20s and you know you're with your woman because they were together, they weren't married yet, and you know, and I was conceived in St. Petersburg. That's where my great grandparents lived at.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom and my aunt lived with my great grandparents at that time. They were grown up by, you know, they had already graduated high school. She was 21 or something like that. And my dad went to Miami to look for work. And so when he came back, my mom's pregnant. And so I don't really know the depths of all that stuff. You know, my
Yeah.
dad feels like he was connived by it and all these things. But then they end up getting married, but my mom didn't want to apparently be with him or whatever like that. But they got married, and then they got pregnant with my mom got pregnant with my sister,
Mm-hmm.
and so you know, my dad comes from, you know, their background was like Pentecostal, you know, and things like that. So you know, he's thinking he's doing the right thing, but he's not Pentecostal. He's not in church or anything like that. He's a mean motherfucker. And you know, I remember my early childhood. You know, I don't remember anything bad. It wasn't until, you know, I started to get a little bit older and things like that. You know, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it just probably hit him. You know, just knowing that I'm not his son, and you know, who knows what was going through his head. I can't imagine. You know what I mean? So I'm not, I'm, I don't, I'm not upset with him or anything like that or anything. But the biggest thing that I told him, you know, was, you know, we could have had um, you could have set the precedence of our relationship early, and we could have been a lot tighter than we are right now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So anyway, so you know, I started taking all these DNA. I took that DNA kit, and I took two more. Can you hear my dog? My dog's fucking loud as fuck,
I
huh?
can hear your dog.
Zone,
Yeah.
shut the fuck up! Golly. Saya! My bad.
No, you're all right.
Okay. So I took that DNA test. Fucking crazy ass dog. I got a pit bull. She's fucking, anytime somebody walks by the house, she goes fucking nuts. Zoe, chill the fuck out. And so, you know, I took that, and I took two others, and it took me a while, man. Like, I had some hits. I had this one dude named fucking Bennington on my list, and like, he's this old fucker living in England, and I tried to reach out to him, and I did make contact via email,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing rang a bell to him. You know, and I had the same story. You know, was, hey, my mom met my dad in 1985 in St. Petersburg, Florida, and his name is probably Chris. You know what I mean? And like, he's from England. Does that ring a bell?
Yep.
You know, so I'm reaching out to motherfuckers with the same shit. Like, does that ring a bell? I just know his fucking name is Chris, and he's from England. I don't know anything else. And that we are, you know, similar in, you know, stature and eyes and haircut and all this other stuff. So it wasn't until like 2 years, man, and like, at one point I had got dark for like a week, man. Like, after I was told that shit, like, I got dark for 1 week, like really dark, and I was like, what the fuck else is being hidden from me? Like, you mean tell me everyone knew about this shit except me? Like, it's not like I just became a grown man. Like, I was 33. Like, I had been a grown man. I've been to Iraq fucking twice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, 100% disabled vet. Like, I didn't just become a grown man. So I'm like, what the fuck, dude? So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to tell anybody I know until I actually find them. So I didn't tell my
Yep.
father that I knew. And apparently my father had been, you know, threatening my mom that he was going to tell me about it. And she was like, no, you're not. I'm going to tell him when I'm ready. And she told me at the right time. You know, she did tell me at the right time. It was
Yep.
everything fell into place. So, um, so then 2 years, you know, goes by, and then I get this hit. It's a second cousin in England, and she sends me a message pretty much similar to mine, but she's looking for her father. She was born through sperm donation. Apparently, her father's Scottish and all this other shit. So I was like, "Hey, you know, I'm really sorry. You know, I don't know. I'm actually looking for my father too." And I tell her the same spiel. Hey, you met my mom in Florida in 1985. You know, his name is supposedly Chris. Because I told my mom too. I'm like, "How do you fucking know his name was Chris? Like, dudes fucking say shit all the time. Like, maybe his name's not fucking Chris." You know, I was just giving her shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was actually my second cousin. She was my second cousin. And she was like, "Oh shit!" She was like, "There's actually a Chris on my mom's side." Well, her mom had died, and I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And she's like, "Yeah, he's on Facebook." So I was like, "Can you send it to me?" And she sent. He wasn't active, and I looked, and like, to be honest, I didn't see the resemblance at all. I didn't see
Yep.
the resemblance, and then I went down this fucking rabbit hole, and I found my uncles and I found my brothers, which I didn't know they were my uncles and brothers at that time. I just
Yep.
kind of navigating through everything, and I felt like I looked more like one of my uncles. And so I was like, well, maybe that's my father, you know? So, a come to find out, that's my second cousin. It was her mom was my dad's first cousin. So I reached out to my brother, which I didn't know he was my brother. No, I reached out to my cousin. I didn't know who she was. I reached out to my cousin, Rhiannon, and I was like, hey, this may sound crazy or whatever. Like, I just want to let you know, like, I'm a grown man. I'm not out to get anything from you guys. I'm just simply trying to track down my heritage and figure out, all these different things. And, she was all sweet about it and everything. She's like, oh, I don't know. But then she spread the word through my whole family. Well, then I found my youngest brother on Instagram, which I'm more active on.
Yeah.
And of all days, it was his birthday. And it took me 3 months to even reach out to these people first. My
Mm-hmm.
brother, Iturbide, he was one of the guys in the truck with me when we blew up. And he
Mm-hmm.
had shattered his foot, and he had to get medevac to Germany. He's a big part of my life. That's my brother to the end, man. We're blood brothers. You know
Yep.
what I mean? We got
Yep.
blown up together. And he was a part of this journey with me through the whole time. And he's like, he was helping me get information, all this other shit. And I told him, I was like, dude, this is fucking weird, dude. I'm not gonna reach out to these motherfuckers. Like, they're gonna think I'm looking for something for them. He's like, nah, dude, fuck that shit, man. He just kind of talked me into it or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, fuck it, dude. So I reached out to my younger brother and I was like, hey, look, you know, this isn't, this ain't a joke or anything like that, man. And I went down this whole spiel. I was like, I think you might be my brother. I was like, hey, could you just relay this information to your father and see if this makes any sense to him? And I noticed it was a birthday. I said, oh, by the way, happy birthday, dude. And fucking sent him a shot glass emoji. And then my middle brother, he thought he was the oldest. I'm the oldest. But my middle brother, he reached out to me and was like, hey, because he didn't respond. My younger brother didn't respond.
Yeah.
So he reached out and said, and he was like, hey, man, you reached out to my brother, everyone's kind of concerned and all this other stuff. I was like, hey, man, like, same shit. I'm like, I'm not looking to get anything from you guys. I got my own shit going on, my own family. This information was just laid on me. And I said, if you could just relay this to your father and see if any of this makes sense, I would greatly appreciate it. And he did. And my father emailed me. And he told me, he was pretty cool about it. He was like, hey, man, like, this is all a bit hazy. He said, but, I'm not going to say you're lying about it or anything like that. He was like, how about this? He was like, I'm going to get us a DNA kit test and then we'll take it and we'll go from there. And we did. And we took it and it came back 99% match or whatever. So we're like, all right. So he didn't want to talk to me on the phone for probably about a month, but he was really cool about it. He would send me every week on Friday, he would send me a PDF spreadsheet, and he started with my great grandparents. So he started with my great grandma and my great grandpa, what their names were, who they were from, where they were from, if they had any type of accolades like serving in the military, anything like that. And then he went to my grandpa, and then my uncles and cousins, and then my brothers, and then him. And it was cool to see all that history, man, because my grandfather served in the Royal Air Force, and
Hmm.
then my one of my uncles served in the Royal Marines, and my dad served in the Royal Navy. And I was like, wow, man, that's pretty cool, man. Like, I served in the Army, you know what I mean? Like, that shit kind of
Yeah.
flows in. And so I got all that information, and I got this badass, thing of all my family members, where they're from. And I'm the first generation American on their side. My dad
Yeah. Yeah.
he always wanted to be an American citizen. That's why when he got out of the Navy, he came to America because he wanted to make a life out here for himself, but it just didn't work
Yeah.
out. And so I got all that information. And I remember in the beginning, I told you I wasn't going to tell my father that I knew until I
Yeah.
had all the information.
Mm-hmm.
So now I got all this information. So I hit my dad up and I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? What are you doing, man? I was going to stop by and say hey to you. So I went over there. We're sitting down and all this stuff and we're talking on his porch. And I said, hey, man, I just want to thank you for everything you've done for me, man. I know you didn't have to do that, especially considering that I'm not your real son. And you should have seen the look in that motherfucker's face, man. He was like, he was not expecting me to say that to him. And then, we had a conversation that's, pretty private. I'm not going to speak too much about it, but he just
Nope.
kind of let me
Don't.
know how he was feeling about the whole situation and, his thoughts and his feelings and all that other shit. And we just hashed it out, and I told him, I
Yep.
was like, hey man, like, I'm not mad at you. I was like, but dude, you treat me like shit growing up, man. Like, that was the wrong play right there. Like, to be honest with you, I was like, if you would have never treated me the way you treated me, I probably wouldn't have went out and seeked any of this shit. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But it is what it is, man, and that's just how we do. So, we had that conversation, and then, now I'm excited about trying to meet my family for the first time. So I got my fucking passport like instantly. Like I applied literally the next day, and I got it within 3 months. And I was supposed to go in November of 2021 because my dad's birthday is on Veterans Day, and we're both
Yeah.
veterans. So I thought it'd be cool,
Yeah.
But I went and took the fucking COVID test, and they gave me a false fucking COVID thing. They told me I had COVID. I didn't have no fucking COVID. I wasn't sick.
No.
Not one fucking cough. Dude, I
Oh.
was so fucking pissed off, man. And so I had to stop all this shit because I didn't take the fucking shot and I wasn't going to take the shot. And so, I'll talk about it now, but I had those little fake fucking COVID cards or whatever like that. And I was like, I was going to play it. I was going to risk it and all this stuff. But when they gave me the failed test, I was like, fuck it, man. Maybe it's a sign. So I couldn't fly. I had to reschedule everything.
Yep.
But it worked out because my brother got married. So I went the following year in April 2022, and my brother was getting married. So I went there for 3 weeks. I met both my brothers. I met one of my uncles, and I met my father and his wife.
Hmm.
And it was super badass time, dude. I had a great time. It was cool bonding. Me and my father, we actually have a very similar story of, I didn't graduate high school. I got kicked out when I was in 10th grade. And I traveled around, man. I went from Georgia to Florida to Virginia to Ohio, back to Georgia before I joined the military. And I just went on this thing. And my father, the same thing. He went from New York to Florida to Texas to California, back to Florida, and then back to England. And just hearing his story, my brother's hearing my story, they're just blown away because of how similar we are, and we never fucking knew each other. You
That is
know,
amazing. That is truly amazing.
crazy.
And it is it was and it's interesting because was it like a 23 or what was the
23 and
test?
Me. I did 23 and Me.
23.
I did Heritage
Yeah.
and some other fucking one.
Because
I forgot what the other one
I've
was.
heard of other stories like that similar, like people didn't know and they do a 23andMe and go, holy moly. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
interesting to me, but for you to be able to find your find him in England and then find your brothers and your siblings, it's an amazing story actually to me, because and for him to be accepting of you, I mean, it's so if it was 33, you're 33 years later,
yeah,
and you're coming
right,
into a
right.
person's life like, huh, well, that's, it's different than, like, to me, that's different than you see the twins that were separated at birth and they find each other 25 years later or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right,
Or whatever. It's this is, to me, it should give people hope that people are good, and then hope that, you know what, the thing that is amazing to me too is your dad and you having a similar journey through life, and you didn't even know each other.
right. That's
I
crazy,
mean,
right?
I mean, it does, that has to say something about our genes, or it's something,
That's what I thought, man. I was like, how fucking crazy is that, man? Like, you don't know somebody, but yet you're so similar. And to be honest, man, it was so refreshing because when I was growing up, I always wanted to be like my father that raised me. Like, and I
Hmm.
was pretty upset that I wasn't like him. Like, he's got black hair, brown eyes. So I always wanted black hair. I always wanted brown eyes. I don't. I got I got dirty blonde, brown hair, and I got fucking these bright blue eyes and shit. And and
Yep.
we're about the same length, but the same height. But and then he was more. I've always been more free spirited and fucking just like to have fun and shit. He's more fucking like super hardcore and like conservative and shit. And like I always wanted to be that, but I wasn't that. And
Yep.
so it was just a little because my mom's super. I take off. It's weird because I got the best side of my mother and my father. So
Hmm.
my mother's super free spirited. She likes to have fun, and things like that. But she can be conservative and stuff too. But I don't have that from
Yeah.
her. I have all her fun side. And then
Yep.
my dad the same way. Like, you know what I mean? And then he has a business mindset because he does import export and stuff like that. So he's an entrepreneur. He runs his own stuff.
Yep.
And so I share a lot all the good shit about both sides. I share that. So it's pretty fucking badass. And then I got my father, man, he just my the one who raised
Yep.
me.
Yep.
um man, he taught me to be hard. He taught me, not to put up with anything, not to let anybody take advantage of me and things like that. And so that I developed that. And so I have all these badass fucking traits that I've developed from these three people, and I would never go back and trade it for the world. I don't think I would. I wouldn't. I thought about this. I wouldn't go back and not want my stepdad to raise me because he gave me character traits that I need to survive in this world, and what's got me through some of the toughest times in my life because of that mindset, that he instilled in me. And it's just because he was just a fucking hard ass, super hard ass. My father's not a hard ass like that. Like he can be, I hear stories with my brothers and he can be strict, but it's nothing like what I had went through with my father. You know what I mean? Like my father toughened me the fuck up. And so I would never want to go back and do any of those things. Now, sometimes I do wish I would have had more time to just spend because my father, he's like, 65 or something like that right now. And so I'm trying to make up for as much lost time as I can with all of them.
Hmm.
And the cool thing is, my brother, I was the only one with kids. My
Hmm.
brother, literally, him and his wife just had a kid. So my nephew will never know that I was never part of the family. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Oh
and
yeah.
so that's going to be super fucking cool. And so it's just cool, man, thinking about what the future has, um, hold and all these things. And, everything just kind of happens the way it's supposed to happen, and that's pretty badass.
It is pretty badass, and it's enlightening to me to hear these kind of stories. Like I said, because I just I, we never know where we're going to go, and there's you know we can you're trying to make up the time you were talking about, and it's like what the I've had conversations, and I'm just saying you can have conversations with a person that you haven't known for a long, long time, and they will affect you for the rest of your life. Like those those conversations that you have, like sitting around a fire and just enjoying each other's time, or whatever else you're doing. You know what I mean? And for
Yeah.
you to catch up with, to know those intimate moments where you get to have those long conversations. I understand that you didn't, roughly for 65 years, you wouldn't have known, 33 years, you wouldn't have known your dad. Or,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things that you can cherish now, and your kids can see this stuff, and your nephew can see this stuff, maybe, you know what I mean, and understand that this is a fun uncle that came into our lives, and I would have never known him. Because here's
Right.
the deal. I'll show you something because we're kind of roughly in the same boat here. Is I'll take off this so people can see. But you know why I'm like this? Is because I'm the fun uncle, and I go, why the hell did I do that? And I tell him I rubbed off all my hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
To
know,
be
and
fun with them. Yeah.
yeah, and because I have no kids of my own, and I'm 56, and I have two stepkids. But I mean, it's one of those things that I was a fun uncle. I would take like when the kids, because I'm a, like a, you get to be two when you have a personality or whatever. They'd always try to,
Right.
or I have to admit I've never changed a diaper in my life because I'm the fun uncle, and when that time comes, I just give the baby back because it's not mine.
No, good for you, man. But it's probably
I don't
something you
need to
don't want to
change a diaper.
experience in life. Yeah, you don't ever want to experience it, man. It's not
I want
pleasurable. It's
I
not,
want to keep being the fun guy.
right, right. Like hey, your kids start acting up and they don't want to fucking listen here. Take your kid, please. Get him out of here.
Here's the deal: that diaper is stinky, not aromatic. I'll just say that.
E- Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Fuck
But
that.
no, I mean it's so fun to hear like where you are and what you've done in life. That how, you think about all the stuff that has happened to you and the good stuff that's happened to you, the bad stuff and the good stuff, and how that all intertwines, and then you become the person you are.
Yeah.
And and I know we were having fun with our sisters, calling them badass and all this, and they are. But here's the other deal: is this is what really intrigued me too was when Sam told me about you, that like she's a proud sister.
Hmm.
And if there is anything in this world that is, I don't know if that can't be better, is to know that you have your sister and other people, and in my situation too, but when they're proud of you and they know your story, they know who you are,
Right.
you know, because it makes me happy because like, you do crazy things like I put my sister in a sleeping bag backwards and wouldn't let her out of the sleeping bag and stuff like that. You know
Right.
what I mean,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever else. But
Oh, you throw
but
the
we can
pillow
be
over her face so she can't breathe. Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean. But here's like I said, it's nice knowing that when they're proud of you and they know they know your secrets, they know who you are. I mean, not all everything, but sometimes when you get older, but for them to be proud of you, that's amazing. And I have to thank Sam for letting me get a hold of you. You know what I mean? And you accepting to come on the podcast because this is awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. I appreciate you being on here. And, my sister doesn't get a lot of credit, man, for person she is. And, she thinks she doesn't have a badass story and all that stuff. But she's really badass, man. And, I appreciate her. And she'll always be super special to me for sure. She probably never heard me say that shit. And she would have to watch the whole podcast, obviously, to hear that because I'm not going to tell her that.
And I'm not going to say a word. She's going to have to watch it and listen to it.
she's gonna have to watch it and listen to it. But nah, man, that's cool to hear you say that because I know she's proud of me and she talks, very highly of me and stuff like that. And she always says she wishes she had this. She's been telling me she wishes she had this cool secret family and things like that. Like I can't, like I do, and everything. But she got a cool little story too, man. Just being in the military and being a combat veteran. I mean, a combat medic and stuff like that. And you know, she's pretty cool, man. She worked hard to get where she's at right now. So I got a lot of respect for her. And even though I don't tell her a lot, I do love her a lot. She's very special and I always got her back for sure.
Well, and I mean, I follow her on social media, and she's been a Don't Die Rusty fan for a while, and
Yeah,
that's
she
like,
was speaking highly of you.
and, that's awesome because it's all about being positive, and then I start, you start following her, and it's like, girl, you're a badass. I mean, I see where you're going, what you're doing, and I don't think she said steal.
No,
You know,
she's got a long journey ahead of her, man. Like, she just recently got divorced probably about over a year ago. And she wasn't even on social media. I had been telling her to get on social media for a long time, and apparently, it wasn't frowned upon in their marriage or whatever. And so now she's starting to kind of shed herself, and she has a little bit more to go. as far as like just kind of shedding all that shit out, man, and just being completely free. But she's heading in the right direction with all that stuff, and I'm super proud of her. I just want her to continue to do those things because it's super important, man, to be freeing in this world because we only get this one life, and who knows where you're gonna go next. You could end up being a fucking fly. You could end up being a
Yeah.
fucking, something else. Who the fuck knows? But enjoy this life that you got right now, because it doesn't matter what you believe in, whether you're religious or anything like that. The key in this life, man, is to trying to make heaven on earth, and so you
Yep.
do that by living your best life and helping many people as you can, loving one another and things like that. At least that's what I believe. So definitely on the right
And
path.
we're in the same boat because I'm telling you, it's about living that fulfilled life, and it's about living the best life you can live and being the best person you can be, and that's where Don't Die Rusty is because
Don't die
you
rusty. Yeah.
don't. Yes, because I want you to chase your dreams and be the best you, and that's what I see in both of you now. And we're getting to the end of the podcast here. Maybe we'll do another some other time. We'll catch up
That's what
again.
I'm
But
drinking on
I
today.
all right. Oh,
You
heaven.
ever had
All
that?
right. No, I have never.
It's a good one. Bottled and
All right.
bond. This is my first time having this actually.
All right. But I ask one last question after at the end of every podcast.
Yeah.
So, what's the good life to Dan Stakes?
What's the what?
What's the good life to Dan Stakes?
The good life?
Yep.
Shit, man. I think just doing what you love doing, being a positive impact on as many people as you can, learning from everybody. I'm a firm believer, man, that everyone is, not your enemy or your friend, but they're your teachers. You can learn from everybody. If you can learn from everybody, you can incorporate all that shit into your life to make you the best person that you can be. And I think it's just about doing all those things, living your best life, love what you're doing, be free, and inspire and be inspired.
Well, thank you. I don't even know if I have to end the podcast because that's how I end it. Like, because more or less.
I swear
So
I've never seen one of your podcasts yet before, man. I didn't have a chance to go back and watch
I
anything,
just
so it's all raw.
like let's live this lifestyle one step at a time and enjoy every day that you have on this earth with the people that you can surround your and the best people that you can surround yourself with. And it sounds like you've done that with where you're at now and where you're going and where you've been. And that's don't die rusty in the whole aspect of things. So you have inspired me, and I know that's this point about this podcast is to inspire people to be better, and I don't ever want to be labeled. So that's why I love talking to so many different people. And once again, thank you for your service and let me flag that fly that red, white, and blue outside my house and wherever else I can. Put the red, white, and blue out because I love this country and I may have not have served, but I love the country and thank you for what you've done to keep this country where it's at.
Oh man, it was a pleasure, man. I appreciate you, having me on your show and allowing me to talk about my story. I do enjoy doing that, and I appreciate it, man. Like it's been cool, been fun.
And don't die, Rusty Nation. Keep chasing your dreams and living your best life. And of course, don't die, Rusty.
Don't die rusty.
Thank you very much.
Salute. Have a good night, man.